Again, ladies and gentlemen of the press, I welcome you to this press conference. And the reason I have called you is because there's anarchy. There's anarchy in my domain. Rather, I won't use the word domain because that is reserved for the Buhari. He talks about his domain. But I would say there's anarchy in the Niger Delta. And I think the world should know that there's anarchy in the Niger Delta. I think about 4 weeks ago, more or less about, I was a guest to the Arise television. And Rufai, one of the very eloquent interviewer, asked me a question. He said, Chief Rita Lorry, what is your opinion about the insecurity in the country? Then he was talking to me about the state of insecurity which had to do with the train tragedy, the kidnap of the people traveling in the train, and the problem of kidnapping in the north. He asked me that question. I knew very well the question. He wanted me to comment on the insecurity of the time. But I diverted that question to the Niger Delta. I told him then that the insecurity they should worry about is not the insecurity now going on in the north, but the insecurity in the Niger Delta is what they should worry about. I suppose at that time, they didn't see it the way I saw it. But I come from the place, and I knew what I was talking about. I told them the insecurity in the Niger Delta is going to, what we have today will be a child's play. When the insecurity in the Niger Delta fully manifests itself. And if it has not quite made itself clear to Nigerians, now, in another few days, it will. Hence, I've come here to call the world, to call all of you to what is happening in the Niger Delta. There's anarchy in the Niger Delta. Today, there's a drum of war in the Niger Delta. Confusion in the Niger Delta. The show of arms and ammunition without fear, without shame, in the country. And when a country comes to that level where ammunition of all of the highest grades are displayed openly, and people boast of this ammunition, and the federal government does not do anything about it. Rather, they aid and abet, then there's a problem. There's a problem of bloodshed. Hence, I am shouting now. There was problem of bloodshed before in the Niger Delta. I suffered. People were killed. Brothers and Ijos and Shekiris. There's intermarriage. But they killed themselves. They slaughtered themselves. And I ran from hospital to hospital. I saw my own children killed, my brothers and sisters. And then, at that time, there was no show of ammunition. We did not know that there was ammunition. And even then, soldiers were all over the place. They responded. This time around, things have changed. Soldiers are even accused of being part of this whole show. Ladies and gentlemen, there's anarchy in the Niger Delta. And this anarchy started years ago when there was discovery of oil in the Niger Delta. The federal government came in, and their concern was the oil. They took the oil. The oil should be sold. This they thought was the thing to do. And of course, they did not realize that we are going to have protests. There are going to be some people, some disagreements. And whenever they had disagreements, what the federal government did was to give one prominent person in a land or somewhere, one person some money, hoping that this man will quell the region, will quell the people of the Niger Delta. But it was all okay for a while, but it's no more so. At that time, they found that a lot of people, they gave money, starting from Umpadek. When NDDC was called Umpadek, starting from that time, the managing directors whom they gave, they thought would settle the boys. They all took the money and ran away. Gradually, the boys themselves became boys. The uprising came, and in their confusion, the judge thought that it's the Shekiris who are benefiting. They were made the slave, there was fight. Shekiris were killed. I was in the front of the battle before finally the federal government came in. Today, a lot of our women are still widows. A lot of our women lost their children. And I'm still alive. I'm crying, telling the whole world now there's anarchy in the Niger Delta. It is more so now when a week ago or a week ago, Tompolo was given the contract to look after the Niger Delta. And I wrote in after my interview, and in that interview I had with Arise, I told the federal government then that you cannot give or hand over your responsibilities to an individual. It is the duty of the federal government to take absolute control of the Niger Delta. It is more so when the only basic product you have in this country that earns you your foreign exchange is the oil. The oil is your only product. Why can't you take control? Control of management to avoid the thieves, the stealing that is going on in the Niger Delta. The problems that are going on in the Niger Delta. I told them. But still, they went ahead and gave the contract to Tompolo. And what happened? Asari Dokubo himself and the German came on and said no, that he's not going to accept Tompolo to manage the region. He's not going to allow Tompolo to look after the region. According to him, there are communities, different communities in the region. And in that region, there are different leaders. Therefore, he's not going to allow Tompolo to come to his own region. Now, it is so bad that I'm sure you all are journalists. You must have seen in the Facebook parade of guns and human resources in the Niger Delta. You will see parades of politicians who have bled this country to death. Those who have not contributed at all. Those who have flown their children out of the country. They milked our country. They took our money. Now they are going to leave us to death, to be enveloped by war. Gentlemen of the press, this is what is happening. And it's not painful because this situation happened before. When there was war, as I stated before, and during that period, there were elders like myself, like Ike Clark. We worked then with General Obasanjo. We worked to bring us peace. We worked to calm our people down. We want to have a kind of reconciliation so that we can have peace in the Niger Delta. And this was what led to the NDDC. The NDDC had a master plan, long-term, short-term, how we can manage the Niger Delta in order to have peace. When we started, there were other provisions to reduce the tension, like the 13% derivation. The 13% derivation is to support, the men, the poor people, the very poor people who are suffering, who cannot farm, who cannot drink water because there's no water, no schools because there's no school. There are no schools, no health facilities. This is what the 13% was supposed to do. But alas, when it came out, the governors turned it into their pocket money. Today, our people in the Niger Delta, especially the women, they are still suffering. There are no schools for their children, no health facilities, no food. They cannot fish. And I have done all those boys whom I carried out their naming ceremonies when they were born. When I go home today, I don't see them. Some are dead. Some are so old that a 30-year-old boy, you cannot say my son, because he's so old that you are wondering whether this is your son. That is the situation. They brought out the matter of amnesty. I don't know. I cannot vouch for that. But the NNDC was the biggest of the lot that was supposed to take care of the Niger Delta. The NDDC was supposed to be manned after the board was supposed to be manned by the governors. The board was supposed to account to the governors. The governors were in control. But today, I challenge any governor today to present a report. The so-called Governors' Council, Governors' Meeting, whatever you call them, I challenge them to come out today, since they started, with different reports to the Nigerian nation. There's also a body in the presidency that is supposed to overlook what the board and the governors are doing. I'm yet to see any report. Now, all we hear is we all know now that if the governors, when they are talking about Niger Delta, they talk about Niger Delta that you think is a solid wall or is a country with all purposes and intentions. But ladies and gentlemen, fellow Nigerians, the word Niger Delta is just a word. It's just a figment of the imaginations of politicians who will use that name to cut away the booty of the country, our money, what we do not know the situation of the forensic audit. But I hear there's still pressure on the president to inaugurate a board. We are close to election time. Everybody, all politicians have their eyes on the NDDC because that is where there's money. Everybody wants to grab the money there for the election purposes. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the situations that rubbishes the so-called Niger Delta. And Asari Dokubo has said so. He even said there will not be an election. In my days, these are words that no government, no federal government will hear and sleep over it. But the man is right. You cannot, and I've said it, you cannot appoint people to administer the lands of different communities. You don't sit in Abuja and administer the land of different communities. You give it to different people to administer the land which, because of the treaty, the treaty we all signed to have in Nigeria. Though we signed this treaty to have one Nigeria, we all are still very conscious of our pockets of lands. So how come you say because there's one Nigeria, you give money to someone and say go there and administer so and so? I signed to hand over my land to the federal government, not to individuals. But the federal government is not capable today of managing the Niger Delta. The federal government does not even realize what is in the Niger Delta. All they think is that you can please one or two people, give them money, and close the mouth of the others. All you want to do is to collect the oil. I'm calling on the federal government to do more than that today. Otherwise, even the so-called foreign exchange they are looking for will not be a thing of the present. There is the NPT Limited, which is PIA Rules Act. When you read that, you know that the federal government has not done a diligent work. There's going to be problems. Asari Dokubo has said so. Some part of his agree with him. Because if you want to take away from someone his land, he will fight back. But I do not agree. As a mother, I don't agree with violence. Hence, I call on the federal government today to do more work before we have anarchy, absolute anarchy, where the federal government, if the federal government cannot control what is happening in the north, what is happening in the Niger Delta will be a child's play. In the Niger Delta, there's a declaration of war. There are guns, and there are people. They are hungry people. So, hence I've called you. May the good God, Lord bless Nigeria and bless all of you one by one. Thank you.